Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we are going to be making the cosmos flower. I am using two different colors of pink here. I have just a really pale pink and then another pretty color called raspberry. We're going to be making sort of a striped flower, and you'll see that in a moment. And then for the center of the flower, we're going to use a little bit of light brown and a little bit of this pale yellow. All of these strips are going to be 1/8 inch wide. I'm going to be using my quilling comb again, and this time I'm going to be using the thinner teeth where they're set a little bit closer together. So you don't have to use a super looper, but just something with tighter teeth. I have my needle tool and I also have a slotted tool. I'm going to use both. A little bit of Elmer's glue wall in my needle nose bottle and some small scissors. We are going to be using our cork board to pin some things into place, so you might want to grab one of those as well. Just for some reference photos here, the cosmos flowers come in a few different colors. They have 8 petals that are sort of segmented into little parts, and the end of the petals are very ruffly. They're not all the same length. This is an example of what we're going to be making today, which is the candy striped cosmos. You can see that the petals start pale on the inside, and then at the tips they have a nice deep pink. So that's what we're going to be creating today on our quilling comb. So here I have 2 strips, one of each of those pink colors. This raspberry color is going to be that dark pink accent, and I want to get that prepped by just tearing off an edge. And I'm going to start with my needle tool, and I have my glue handy as well. So I'm using the needle tool on the pale pink color, which is going to be the main part of our flower. And I'm just going to roll it a couple of times around my needle tool just to give a little bit of an anchor that's going to keep my strip in place when I start weaving it on my comb. It's just a little bit easier, I find, than holding everything still for a bit longer. I'm going to start right in the center of the tightest teeth here with my tail in the back. I'm going to pull my strip forward and then up and then over one tooth. And then the strip's in the back again, pull it forward, pull it up, and now we have the center and 2 teeth on either side. And I'm going to keep doing the same thing until I get 4 teeth on either side of the center anchor that I started with. So that right there is number 4. So there's my center. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 center, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just went up and around, up and around, up and around until I got the size that I wanted. I'm flipping my comb over, holding the extra strip down around the middle and tearing off the excess. I'm going to put a little dot of glue right in the back there and then press that down to secure. And this is the only part that I've glued so far, and everything will stay together. That's what we're looking for. And now I'm going to take that darker pink strip and I'm going to glue that torn edge right next to where I tore the tail of the pale pink. And that's going to create a nice seamless transition from one color to the next. Get it lined up as close as I can anyway. And just press that to seal for a second. And I'm not adding any teeth to this one. I'm going right where I stopped with the pale pink. Pull it around the back. Not adding any teeth on the bottom either. Pulling it up again, and this time I'm going to add 1 tooth on the top, come back down to the bottom and the back, and again pull the excess right in the same spot as I did last time. So I didn't add any teeth at all to the bottom, I just added the 1 to the top. Get everybody straightened out here, and then get rid of the excess just like I did with the pale pink. Glue that down and press to secure for a second, and then we're going to see when we pull it off the comb what we should be working with at this point. We should be able to just slide that right off. So now I have all that nice pale pink in the middle, and then the raspberry color is surrounding it and then adding just a little bit on the edge. It might not look like much now, but you're going to need to make 3 of those for each petal. And then I'm also going to make 2 of the next size, which is going to be similar, just a tiny bit smaller. So we're going to start off the same way as we did last time, which is taking our pale pink and giving it a couple turns on our needle tool. Get that right in the center somewhere. And then we're going to start weaving the same way we did last time. So tail starts in the back, goes down 1 tooth, up and over, up 1 tooth, down 1, up and over, to the back again. And here we are with number 3. Now, we just wanted a tiny bit smaller than the last one. So instead of looping around and adding 1 loop on the top and the bottom, I'm just doing the bottom. So I added 1 here, pull it up, and tear off the excess. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, then the center, and then 1, 2, 3. And then a little bit of glue to that. Get that pressed down to dry. And then we're going to do the same exact thing we did last time with the raspberry color, which is continue right where we left off. Right there. So there's no big gap or anything where we're adding our new color. Wrap it in the exact same place that we did the last one, not adding any teeth to this part. Come back around and then adding 1 to the top, back to the bottom, not adding any teeth here, and then right to the middle, and then glue that down as well. Just like so, a little bit of glue, and get that sealed up there. And then just like before, it should slide right off your comb. Have a little close up of that one. So same situation, we have the pale pink on the inside and then wrapped around with the darker pink, and you can see it's just a tiny bit shorter than the last one we did. And you're going to need 2 of that piece. So 3 of the bigger ones and then 2 of the smaller ones. So here we have all of our pieces and we have some glue. We're going to start stacking these up. All these pieces are going to make 1 of the petals for our cosmos. And I like to start with the larger of the sizes, making sure that the darker pink loop is towards the top. I'm going to add a thin line of glue, not covering the entire part. Pretty much where that extra dark pink loop is, that's where you want to stop the glue. And then you're going to extend it all the way to the bottom, because we want these petals to not be completely together at the top. That's where we're going to get that sort of fluttery, uneven look to it that we want. So starting right below the top, I'm going to add some glue and then stack the third one. This is the third one that's the same size, that larger size. And once I get those stacked together, I'm going to start kind of pinching the bottom half. Notice I have the top one here. I'm not pinching that top part at all. Just pinching from about halfway down to the end. And what you don't want to do is kind of wiggle your fingers back and forth while this is setting, because they can get sort of uneven. So just make sure you're keeping everything nice and level as you're squeezing it. And then I just add on 1 of the shorter pieces to one side. Same thing, we don't want to smush that top loop. We don't want to glue that top loop all the way down. And we don't want to move our fingers from side to side to make things uneven. And now I flip it to the other side, and I'm going to, there we go, add the last of the 5 pieces that I had woven on my quilling comb. And just kind of pinching that bottom half. It's not going to be completely flat because you got a lot of paper there. So don't make yourself too crazy. You just want it to be thinner on the bottom while keeping those nice loops up at the top. And here I sort of pinched one of them by accident. And I didn't edit that out because I just want to show you that if you do kind of pinch one of those dark pink loops like I did and lose the shape, just use your needle tool and kind of remold it a little bit. It'll pop right back out. So now I have all 8 of the petals. And I know it seems like a lot of work to do all that weaving, but once you kind of get in the groove, it goes real fast. It really does. And you can see here, they get together and make a nice big flower. And we're gonna put that on pause for a second and go ahead and start making what's gonna be the center of our flower. And up close, the cosmos had sort of a darker brown and little white kind of stamen coming out of it that were almost in like a little ball shape. We're gonna do something slightly different. This is very similar to the cone flowers that I made a number of years ago, where I took one strip and added another strip to the side of it to make a 2-colored sort of wider strip. So I'm starting with a light brown strip, and I added just like an inch of glue along the very edge. And then I'm laying this yellow strip overlapping a bit right where that glue was on the end. So it's going to make it a little bit taller and have 2 colors together. And it's definitely easiest to do this in little chunks. So I started off with an inch there. I'm going to add another inch or so of glue and carefully lay down that yellow as straight as I can. It's borderline impossible to make this perfectly straight, but do what you can and line it up so that you have the same size of the brown and the same size of the yellow. And you're going to do this all the way to the other end. These strips that I'm using today are about 18 inches long. That's going to take a minute or so. But just be patient and just keep gluing a bit and then carefully lining up your yellow strip on top of your brown, and it will come together very nicely. But now we're just going to move along to the bottom here. So I've got the whole strip glued down, and here's just the last section. Once you get towards the bottom, you can probably do a little bit bigger pieces because so much of it is going to be set and ready to go. Just get that lined up as good as I can. And we're gonna just make sure there's no air bubbles by running it through your fingers a couple times. And then you're gonna want to set that aside to dry. The next part we're going to do is, after that section's dry, get your petals all lined up on your workboard. We're going to be using pins in a second to keep everybody together, but we're going to fringe our center. So instead of just making tiny little balls, we're going to give the illusion of that same look by fringing. And I have my small craft scissors here, and I'm just going very, very close fringe, really just along the yellow piece of that strip that I glued together. It's okay if it goes down into the brown a little bit, but you want to make sure that you're not going all the way through. And I know this seems tedious, and there are machines and different types of scissors that do this fringe work, but I have a lot of feelings on that. And I actually made a whole video about why I do the fringe by hand instead of doing it any other way. So I can link that in the description box for this video if you are wondering why I do the fringe work this way. There's a close-up, really nice tight fringe. We're going to do that all the way to the bottom of this strip. So now the entire strip is fringed. I'm going to, you see I have my petals lined up on my workboard now. I'm going to use a slotted tool at this point, and I want the section that has brown on the outside. So I get that all lined up, and I'm going to start just rolling on my slotted tool. And I realized as I was doing this practice that I don't need exactly this entire length. I need almost the entire length. Your sizes may vary because it's going to depend on exactly which quilling comb you use if your petals turn out exactly the same size as mine do. So I'm going to show how I sort of measured the size that I needed this center to be. So like I mentioned, I had all my petals lined up. I'm keeping my coil here of this fringed piece on my tool, or you can take it off your tool and roll it by hand when it gets a little long. And I'm just sort of holding it up to the center of my flower here. I'm just trying to eyeball and make sure that I'm not too big, not too small. Once I'm happy with the size, I'm going to tear off the excess. If you're using the exact same tools that I'm using here, I had about 3 to 4 inches left over from that 18-inch strip. If yours is a little bit smaller, you can wind the whole thing up and then make a second strip, add it to that, and keep going if you need it to be bigger than what I have here. So now we have our nice tall fringed work here. We want that to stick out a little bit higher in the center, which is why we didn't just use the yellow. And it fits very nicely in there. Now it's just a matter of gluing everybody together. So I'm going to put a pin right in the center of my flower, keep that guy in place. Then I'm just going to add some glue to the edges here and a little bit up on either side. And then I'm just going to place those petals in place. I am making this a flat flower. If you wanted to, it might look a little bit more realistic of a true life cosmos if you mold your petals a bit. I've done many videos on molding flowers, so I'll leave one that I think might be the most useful in the description box for this video as well, so you can see which glue I use for that and kind of the technique that I like to use when I'm making molded flowers. But for today, it's just going to be flat. So I'm going to go all the way around, adding a little bit of glue to the end of each petal. And it's okay if they move around a little bit. If you want to pin the petals in place as you're going, you can do that. And if you need to adjust any of the petals, you should have some time before the glue dries that you can get them in the exact space that you want them. And there we go. There is our candy striped cosmos. You let that dry, you can take it off your board. This is what it can look like. You can spread out the fringe a little bit, but you can see you have the nice lighter pink turning into the darker pink at the end. You can also make these just one color. I did a similar idea without adding an extra color on the quilling comb, and you can see that the ends of these petals on the white are all different sizes and length, just to keep the idea of those variated ends to the petals of the examples that we showed in the beginning. I think these turned out pretty nice. I like the vibrancy and I really like the size. These are pretty big flowers. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will answer them as soon as I can. I will have links to all the tools and supplies that I use in the description box for this video, also the other videos I mentioned, and a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can find some quilling extras and some ways to support the channel so it keeps growing and I can continue to make these videos. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for the next video, and I will see you then. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.